come out with the story. People who then investigated his background were told that he'd never been at Vandenberg Air Force Base, he never held the position of officer in charge of filming and so forth.
Without his military record and the telltale film, Jacobs was unable to prove that his story was true. Media interest quickly evaporated.
By being so secretive about UFOs, not only did the CIA undermine its own credibility with UFO researchers, it gave the public further reason to question the necessity of national security secrecy.
Sometimes, suspected government interference gets very personal and menacing. A police chief in rural Alabama found his life turned upside down after a face-to-face encounter with a possible alien. Since the 1940s, UFO buffs have accused the government of covering up UFO sightings. In some cases, they may have done more than just cover up. The most dramatic example of suspected government interference in a UFO sighting happened in Alabama in 1973. Jeff Greenhaw, a rural police chief, responded to a hysterical call from a woman who'd said she'd seen an alien. Greenhaw drove to the remote area and found his way blocked by a metallic-suited creature standing in the road.
He stopped the car, said, "Howdy, stranger." There was no response, so he got his Polaroid camera from out of the glove compartment and took 4 photographs. The creature then began moving away.
Greenhaw got back into his car and tried to follow the creature, which quickly disappeared. The next day, Greenhaw told his story to the media.
Story came out. First thing that happened is his mobile home was burnt down and the original Polaroids, I believe, were damaged. Fortunately, copies had been made by that time.
Greenhaw's troubles had only begun. In the following weeks, his car engine exploded, his wife left him, and he lost his job.
My speculation is that some government agency was involved in trying to destroy the evidence.
UFO conspiracists lay the blame for Greenhaw's misfortunes on their favorite culprit, the CIA. Others wonder whether Greenhaw's sighting is merely a hoax gone haywire.
I don't think hoaxes go that far. And as to the question has arisen, was he hallucinating? Well, maybe he was, but the camera wasn't.
In 2001, Vice President Dick Cheney was asked about UFOs, responding, "Well, if I had been briefed on it, I'm sure it was probably classified and I couldn't talk about it." For many people, Roswell, New Mexico is the undisputed site of a UFO landing. For more than 50 years, stories have been told of a government cover-up involving a captured flying saucer, alien bodies, and even alien autopsies.
I would say the Roswell crash is the most significant event in human history. We had an encounter, albeit a very sad one, because the creatures were, with the possible exception of one, were dead. We had an encounter with creatures from another world.
The now familiar story of Roswell has only grown in legend since July 5th, 1947, when a mysterious object fell from the sky and landed in a sheep rancher's field. For years, the military maintained its story that the crashed wreckage was nothing more than a weather balloon. But books were written, and witnesses came forward, fueling angry claims that the government was hiding something of momentous importance. Responding to public pressure, the Air Force released a document in 1995 called the Roswell Report, which claimed to tell the truth, that the weather balloon explanation was indeed a cover story, but not for a crashed spacecraft. According to the report, the debris found by the sheep rancher came from a top-secret U.S. military program. Given the code name of Mogul, the military was testing special devices attached to high-altitude balloons as a way to spy on the Soviet Union.
After we used nuclear weapons to end World War II, the American military became very concerned that such weapons could be used against us. And in view of the knowledge of the Soviet espionage, there was great concern in monitoring the development of the Soviet nuclear weapons. As a result, there was very great pressure to get some detection system going.
According to the report, Project Mogul, based 100 miles southwest of Roswell, sent aloft a highly classified device ringed with sensitive microphones attached to a 600-foot-long string of helium balloons. This top-secret payload could acoustically detect atomic explosions even from the other side of the world. The bizarre materials used could easily have mystified a civilian observer, appearing like shining silver jellyfish in the sky. According to the report, on June 4th, 1947, the tracking signal of one of the balloons was lost, and the balloon crashed into the sheep farmer's ranch. The government had provided an explanation for one Roswell mystery, but the report did not make any attempt to explain why many eyewitnesses claimed to see aliens at the site. Descriptions shared many of the same characteristics.
We're generally looking at creatures of very, very short stature, no more than probably 3.5 feet. The four-fingered hand seems to be pretty much a point of agreement. The heads tend to be described as pear-shaped with somewhat larger than usual eyes, with other orifices not very well marked, not much of a mouth, not much for ears or nose.
Witnesses compared the alien bodies to dummies or dolls, with expressionless, serene looks on their faces. They were dressed in something like a one-piece jumpsuit. To dispel the myth that the government retrieved aliens at the Roswell crash site, the Air Force issued a second document called the Roswell Report, Case Closed, in 1997. This report detailed another secret program, Project High Dive, conducted by the Air Force between 1954 and 1959. High Dive tested a revolutionary parachute that operated at extremely high altitudes. Too dangerous for humans, the first chutes were tested on anthropomorphic dummies, dressed in standard Air Force one-piece flight suits.
We had anthropomorphic dummies that we instrumented, and we could send these dummies to high altitude on single balloons, and with a command signal could separate the balloon from the dummy and let it free fall and open a parachute at some altitude just to see what data we could gather.
The balloons carrying the dummies were launched from the desert near Holloman Air Force Base in southeast New Mexico. Although none were launched from Roswell, many dummies landed and were recovered close to Roswell.
We would send over the helicopter and recovery crews with a number of body bags and pack them in the body bags as soon as we got there.
One witness described an alien body as cold to the touch. This was entirely appropriate, since the dummies plunged from the stratosphere, where they had been subjected to sub-zero temperatures. On impact, they were still freezing, even as they lay on the desert floor. But conspiracy theorists are not at all convinced that crash dummies explained alien sightings around Roswell.
First of all, the crash dummies are around 6 feet tall. And compared to these little guys we're talking about, these little 3.5 foot lithe, thin, very, very small figures,